somewhere here.
So I might just, we might want to pattern after the special assessments and public improvements where it says when more than one lot or parcel of land is to be specially benefited, the project shall be considered as a special assessment district. Maybe we need to have more than one lot. I mean, we have to draw the line somewhere, and then that would be, then you're a developer and not a homeowner.
And the lots have to be connected?
No,
Okay.
I'll go for public comment.
It just seems to me that the thing that made me raise my hand was, Christy, when you said, if you're too far away from the end of it, there's some exceptions. It seems to me like you would want to develop a program that would solve that problem. Because as you move down the road and things get developed around those people, that becomes an issue, right? People that aren't connected and people that are beyond them that are connected. So thinking in this sort of 50-year spectrum, this would be a perfect time, I think, to incentivize those places that are beyond to go ahead and get connected.
Well, and I think the incentivizing is our match with the, I think that's what, I was just answering specific to the code, but I think you're absolutely right. This should incentivize people more so than not attaching the public utilities. Go ahead.
Special improvement district is different than a special assessment district, correct?
Where is,
So in the purpose, it says,
Okay.
his or her or its undeveloped property assessed in a special improvement district. So basically, going back to what's happening right now, in the current situation, we have two districts that are the same district, right? We have an assessment district because they have a subdivision agreement and they're getting recorded and each lot is gonna owe X amount of dollars. But then we also have simultaneous to that going on a special improvement district, which is what we identify that district for reimbursement, AKA matching purposes.
so a special improvement district is the same thing as an 8.1.
So I feel like if we could completely separate these two things out, I think what the confusion is they're going like this. And then it's like, wait, are we talking about an assessment? No, we're talking about a reimbursement, but that's an assessment, and that's why I'm getting confused.
And that's the goal, to bring it back and have it clarified. That is absolutely our goal to do that.
Go ahead.
I would say that I think that it should be, two or more, not singular, not just one. It should be two or more for the developer part. I think that for the reimbursement.
I would agree with that.
Okay, that seems like an easy.
So
Go ahead.
going back to just trying to clarify, can we take anything out of this that refers to an assessment district in this whole, everything that we have before? I mean, I could pick through it and find it all. but-
On page 3, you mean the changes to the developer reimbursement program?
Right, am I on the right page?
Right there.
So
Yeah.
also included in the packet is that subdivision code, but I think it's just for reference, not
Yes,
as
for reference.
Right.
And that is charter, so that actually, that'd be a vote.
Oh, sorry,
So,
charter.
Yeah.
So I'm referring to 5.22.010 in the purpose. And I just feel like if we identify this as something other than a special improvement district, because if I'm not mistaken, likely Larry doesn't need an assessment district. He's probably just applying for
Right.
a match or a reimbursement or whatever we're gonna call it. So when we start commingling these two ideas,
That's where it gets.
that's where it's making it muddy.
Well, I think that, discussing if we have a match involved with a special assessment and we have a reimbursement involved with someone like Larry. Larry, he did it. But I think that Jeanette's right on play where we'll have to do sort of a flow chart, incorporate them, but have them separate. We do need to incorporate, instead of a credit, make it a match. And we can possibly add that verbiage into the 8.
Not
And then-
into 8 because
No,
8 is
you'll have to
charter.
vote.
8
Oh,
is
yes.
charter, so we can't add it there. But as you see
But
in
we can do,
8.2,
clarify.
it says details shall be fixed in code. So we can go much
Right.
deeper in the code and have it there. But yes.
Go ahead, go ahead, Councilmember Custer, or, Senga.
I was just trying to figure out, I mean, every developer that is trying to put utilities in will apply for this, match or reimbursement, whatever we're gonna call it, like Councilor Brown said. But not every person, not every developer is gonna need this.
Special assessment district.
Right, so they're actually,
They
you
are.
know, we can do the developer reimbursement program that we're talking about, but the special assessment, that's something that not everyone's going to need
Exactly.
Or do.
Yep.
or do, right? So, it seems like if we just focus on this part and then a separate,
yep,
it'd be a separate avenue.
so that, yes, go to this place.
Right,
Right.
right.
All my head, flow charts.
Excuse me.
Well, Vice Mayor had his hand up first,
Okay.
sorry.
So I guess my other question was then how, I do like the idea of, or more, what is it? Is it 2 or more? 2 or more.
One or more. Oh, no, sorry, the way they say it is when more than one, or
More
yeah.
than one,
Or
okay,
two,
I'm sorry.
more than one or 2 or more, yeah.
More than one. So if I wanted to build 2 really nice $1 million homes that are right next to each other that are gonna be vacation rentals, then that would be, you know.
Well, that's what council's gonna consider, because you're gonna consider the application from the get-go before that gets approved. So if the
So
plan
that
is
would
to
go to
develop.
planning and zoning first though, right, first?
The development, yes,
Yeah,
but not the
not-
application.
But not the
Not
application.
application.
The application's gonna go to council first.
And then if I wanted to build 2 fourplexes that were right next to each other and create 8 new possible homes, I still only get 50%? Or should I get 75%? Because they're making more homes, but if we're making 2, I know it's complicated, but I'm just saying, I know it's not too far, just a thought, just something to think about. If I was really trying to create more housing, or if I was only creating 1 home. So I just heard the 75%, I'm not saying that that's where we want to be, but just a thought on how tiered things could work and how to really incentivize the program to make more affordable housing, rather than, you know, or if they were single-family starter homes or whatever that was too. So I know that that's something that can be considered during the application process, but if we're thinking of up to 50%, like, sure, we would want to incentivize somebody to extend utilities even farther into an area, because it could open it up to another person or another lot. But if we could also incentivize people who are creating housing, multiple housing, or more options of housing, do we want to look at that in terms of the other one? I'm just saying that now because if we do a program like this and we put something out, just like how the first part was put out, and we just throw it out there, and then we say, well, this really didn't work, because now we have all these homes that are just, you know, maybe 1 home here, 1 home there, or whatever, or 2 homes here, 2 homes there. But if we did get, you know, a 4-plex, or we got a 3-plex, or a duplex, or 2 duplexes. So are we really incentivizing housing, or are we just incentivizing the movement of utilities into an area? Just a thought. I know that it gets everything complicated, but
Interesting that you bring that up too, because even looking at it, to me, the program was always about single-family housing, but yet there's nothing that
Right.
says that. It was always my belief that that's what this program was for.
Yeah,
So
that needs to be outlined in,
that needs to be clarified, I would say.
like the intent,
Is it for single-family home, or is it for multifamily home?
or both, both, yeah.
Okay, then definitely that's something that we will spell out,
Housing.
because, yeah,
I thought it was
yeah.
both,
I think it's more like residential
Right.
housing.
Right.
yeah.
So residential housing, so that makes sense, residential.
The only thing we were worried about was short-term. That came up in the assessment. We were trying to restrict. We didn't want people buying it up and then building a bunch of B&Bs.
Right.
Councilmember Cease was first.
Okay, I had just a couple of things. So when we were talking, when Jackie says we have one thing and then we have the other, so Larry's the other one. And up on Doorway is the other one, correct? Is that how it's saying it? Okay. And also, when you're considering,
Well,
okay,
let's answer that question.
Okay.
So,
she did, I thought, but go ahead.
well, but the development currently happening on Doorway is both an assessment district, but it's also a developer reimbursement. It's both, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
It's
Yes.
both.
Yes, it's both, because when that Gateway subdivision was first started, it was put into his subdivision agreement that, because these were running parallel together, that if it was ever approved, he had the ability to apply for the reimbursement.
Okay, to apply, but are we doing his accounting?
It's all done.
I mean,
So that
did
was
we-
part of it under the subdivision
It was
agreement.
part of the, under the
Okay.
subdivision agreement, yes.
Okay, so then also you're talking about, John said 2 lots, okay. What if a person has 2 empty lots, but he's already built a home in between them? Will that count?
No,
No.
you're not supposed to, well, I guess you can build a single family home over a lot line.
Well, they're not lot lines, okay, I mean, he can build 2 more places, but he'd already built one in between. They're legal, this one's legal, and the one over here would be legal. Could he apply for that?
So he has 3 total lots. The
Yes,
one
but
in the
he's
middle
already
is
built one.
developed, but there's 2.
Empties, one on each side of that.
Well, are the utilities already in or are they not? I guess that would be part of the question.
Well, they wouldn't be, they might be out on the road, but they're not into his place.
Then no, because it's expanding city utilities, not
Not
your.
hookups.
So the demarc line is, you know, one side's city, one side's developer.
Okay, all right, that answers
Right.
that, thanks.
So one thing that we did want to talk about as well is funding the program. And, you know, with our last meeting, we spoke about splitting the NCL funds. Tentatively, we talked about that. 500,000 for childcare and 500,000 then for development. And I'd still like to, I'm sorry?
And long-term too, how do we fund the program into perpetuity?
Exactly. So one thing that's starting with the NCL funds, 500,000 into this account, and then we want to talk to you about long-term as well, and sale of municipal properties. So that'll be our kind of our next segue in and to the funding source.
Go ahead.
We left the last thing, and I was gonna comment on Cheryl, and then you clarified, but then I read it, and I think it's really important, I'm sorry to skip that. But before I forget, in 5.22.010, it just says 50% of the cost of extending public utilities to his/her, and that's a question I had. This just says extending public utilities, so if I have lots in the city's utilities right there, you're extending public utilities to my lots. So I think we should just clarify the cost of extending the city's utility main line.
City
Yeah.
The
infrastructure,
city.
not the city infrastructure.
Right, I think that needs to be clarified in there because, you know, let's fast forward 10 years down the line and see how somebody's gonna interpret that for somebody else. Sorry.
Very good.
I'm happy if we look at selling appropriate city property to continue to fund.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any objections? Is that a good answer?
That is, and we
Or
do
is that
have,
what you're looking for?
we do have some information. Did I cut you off?
No, go ahead, go
Councilmember? I'm sorry. We do have information that starts on page 12, and Jackie has more information that she's going to share with you as well.
So on page 11 is an overview map showing what is owned by the city. It's in the pink salmon color. And then if it has hatch marks through it, it's a property that's leased.
So let me pause and just say, are there any further, so we're moving on to the next subject, which is municipal lands, and potential sale, but is there any other public comments regarding the developer reimbursement program?
I think that was a good catch on Rissy's part.
Okay. Do you have any further comments on the developer reimbursement?
I my personal opinion is I would like to see something that would break out that program to incentivize more housing options. But I don't know if that's the wishes of the council, and, you know, I don't know if that's something that would make it more amenable to people to see if it was multifamily units and how it could break it down and create more housing, because I do feel that there's either that single-family home or the, or multiple units that would really help housing in the community.
So if we just put residential housing, that covers that whole market.
And then just thinking
Single
about,
family mixed.
and then making sure, like, whatever template gets brought to council, you know, maybe administration thinks about highlighting, okay, this is an 8-plex, do we wanna propose a higher rate of reimbursement, potentially, right? Something like that. Okay, well, let's keep chewing on it, cause that is true, I mean, sometimes we say single-family housing, but there's a lot of people in the spectrum of, you know, salary range. And we need to make sure that all those people are, which is different than subsidized housing. We need affordable housing,
Yes.
which is different than subsidized housing.
Right.
So
Thank
you're
you.
talking about affordable housing.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And part of that too is that we could look at how the infrastructure comes into the unit, say a 4-plex, and I'm really making this up off the top of my head here, but the 4-plex, how is that coming in? You know, probably one, I'm not gonna say it right, one stub out, one connection, so then it probably would still be the 50% because there's only one coming in. So we would look at all of that as well.
So the only thing about the 75% is we'd still have to look how to fund this. Because
Yeah,
if you're
correct.
giving out more than you're taking in, then you're not gonna have money for
Correct.
long. So
Correct.
that 75% might not be that great a, I mean, as much as I'd love to see an incentive to build, that might not be something we
Attainable.
can do.
Okay, and thank you for letting us sit on that for just one more second, and now on to municipal lands. Jackie, sorry.
So, like I said, page 11 shows you the ownership map for the city of Seward. The salmon colored are all lots that are owned by the city. If it has a hash mark through it, that's leased land.
It's a hash.
So I
Which
have
ones are hash?
included the map, but then on page 12, let me blow this up. I was asked by administration to provide a breakout of current land that either is totally empty, has the potential to be built on that we've never really looked at, or if it's a development that could be sold for businesses, like, I'll just start at the very top. So, 911 Hemlock is institutional, and that is on page 13 of your packet. So I'm gonna show you the maps and just go down the list that I have, so it can help you a little bit. So, 911 Hemlock Avenue is currently a campground. It's an overflow campground. You have your senior housing off to the west, sorry. I'm like, which way am I going? And then you have your bike park, and then the other area from on the west is zoned park. This is one of the only areas that's actually zoned park, and there's multiple reasons for it. It's not just that, it's not just that it has the basketball court there. There's a lot of transmission lines and stuff that are in this vicinity, as well as a lift station, so they incorporated it as a park so it could never be built on, just to save that green space. So this is 6.97 acres, and the reason that it was brought in as a discussion item is at the last meeting, you as a council discussed the possibility of funding a new subdivision. And so, I had previously spoke to a couple of the council members about how that would look. So I broke it down into, there are every lot's a little over a half acre. So I wanted to give you guys a breakdown of what that could look like. If this council chose to do their own subdivision in this type of area, I've included, Parks and, or Public Works has given us a breakdown of what it would cost to bring the utilities here. This would be a project that we would fund the entire project, and you as a council could decide on, after the whole project is complete, water, utilities, the cul-de-sac and the engineering, then you could decide to go out to sealed bid to sell them with a minimum of what we had placed into it. So it would come out of your developer or your infrastructure fund. I'm not sure what you guys are calling it. So if it would come out of your infrastructure fund, be paid for, and then you would receive at least what you put into it back when this property's sold. Because you can place a minimum bid, so that would at least cover those costs. So this is just one area that was picked to just show you how that layout works. And then this is how that, I'm all about the flow chart, so this is how that would look. We would have to engineer the subdivision. We'd incorporate putting in the utilities. The electric would be installed by City of Seward employees. Public Works has stated that they would go out to RFP for the roads, water, and sewer. And then from that RFP, then you guys would install, approve, and then have the utilities installed. And then you would sell those by bid, and then use the funds to repay the subdivision, and remaining would be placed in the created infrastructure fund. This was just a general breakdown of what it would cost for Public Works, for what they would foresee the cost to be for water and wastewater. Roads were not included in that estimate. And then electric provided us a breakdown also. This map shows you where electric is, where the water and sewer is. By adding this infrastructure, would bring water and sewer down Hemlock. It would also give the ability to add water and sewer off of Juniper Street and Laurel, which would then in turn allow this development, this property owner, to sell his lots as a developable. I can tell you that he's had a couple people, and the biggest pushback is that they can't afford to get the utilities to it. So, we've had a couple businesses come in and see what it would cost to put utilities there. So that would incorporate, it would give you your subdivision as well as the ability for utilities to be here, added to this auto commercial property, and then also added to these lots that are here. Again, I broke it down on what it looks like. The next spot that I am talking about is the Public Works relocation and subdivision.
Just real quick on that one, would that be getting rid of that basketball court that's in there?
No, it's in the park area.
Okay, just double check.
Yeah, no, the park, the bathrooms, the park, and the bike
The
park. would
memorial
still-
and the
yeah,
bike park.
Yeah. So, the next one is the Public Works relocate and subdivide. It's broke down into two sections. You've got 412 to 436 6th Avenue and 405 Belane. This just gives you how that would look. Your relocation, you'd need to decide a location for the new building. You would need to go out to RFP for design build. you would, possibly do funding through the bond bank. Then also with that, you could have an income source to show that once the building was relocated, you could sell those parcels and, put that towards the bond itself.
Jackie,
So-
can we pause? I'm sorry. Let's pause, and I wanted to, any feedback on Hemlock?
The Hemlock.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure
Sorry,
if you were
Jackie.
going through all. Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to ask on the Hemlock deal, did we consider 1/3 acre lots? Or just half acre?
This was just a,
Like
I
a
mean,
quick rough, yeah.
quick, rough, put it together so you could sort of get a concept of, you know, you could definitely do smaller lots.
Or
Just-
bigger lots with multi.
Or bigger lots, yeah.
Go ahead.
Think what you might run into with smaller lots is that cul-de-sac, I think, is gonna have to be bigger, and it's gonna, you know, if you look
Yeah.
at Parks Place, those lots at the end, the cul-de-sac's so big, it makes the lots at the end kind of
Yeah.
like triangle and weird and skinny.
And that's why I left a lot of the back part too, because I
Right.
didn't do
It's
the,
gonna eat
you know,
into
it's,
that.
you're gonna have to have at least a 60-foot turnaround for fire safety. So, you know, I didn't incorporate that in, that's why your lots look the way they do. It was we can do this, I'm sure we can, but that's where the engineering comes into play.
Councilmember
So,
Osanga?
so before we get too deep into this, I'm just gonna go right out and say I am against even trying to take away a campground from our inventory of campgrounds. And this one is not on the beach, it's the only campground in town that's not on the beach, and it's in a forested area, and that's where I go. So I am totally against taking this out and doing this. No matter what I mean, it can happen, but that's just my opinion. Unless we're gonna build a campground somewhere else, because that's full at 4th of July, it's full at Salmon Derby. I mean, we have enough people here where,
We get about $41,000 in revenue out of that campground in an average year.
So think of what that would be in property tax and kids in the school. Which I'm not against campgrounds, but I do like that there's private campgrounds developing instead of city campgrounds. But
I
I'm
understand
also
what you're saying. I
nostalgic.
have a
I'm very
nostalgia,
nostalgic
right,
about that.
for sure,
Yeah.
but
well, I mean, to me, that's a campground. This is an RV park, where the RVs are sardine canned in and they're real close when it's not COVID, but this is an actual RV park where an actual campground. So this is the only treed, covered campground off the beach that we have in town.
I wonder if we could look at other city land to make another treed little campground
Sure.
area.
And that's, yeah.
You know, if this would, just options, something to think about.
And maybe we can make camp spots across from there's still a long strip of park there. I mean, not as many, but there would still be.
Another option is, just so everyone, here's Hemlock, here's the proposed area. The city also owns this property right here. If it's a tree property, it could be turned into it.
I do like that you threw that out because we have a number of properties to look at. So if there's other better properties and, you know, this already has a use on it, let's keep going. and
Right,
look at
well,
things.
but as far as subdivisions, I mean, there's not really a whole lot out there as far as putting in a whole new subdivision
Right.
that we own. I mean, what I just saw, when I looked through this packet,
Yeah.
there really isn't a whole lot out there. I mean, so I'm, kudos for putting that together. Thank you. But-
No problem.
So, can I give some feedback just on the Hemlock? It said go out to bid, and I don't know if we need to ask the attorney or who we need to talk to, but I wouldn't want, Liz and I spoke about this with administration, like I don't want, people to go out for bid and then it just sit on it for their grandchildren.
Right. There has to be a development clause.
Yes.
And we're meeting with the attorney on Thursday to just talk about how that process works, so.
And there's people that have done it, like, Hope had a big subdivision that the borough did, so I don't know if there was a development clause in that or.
There was.
Yeah. And they, opened up that property for subdivision, 5 years ago or something. Okay. That's a good point, though.
So would you like me to go on to the next? So back to the relocation of of Public Works. Again, here's the flow chart. We were talking about the possible funding with a bond bank, and then the possibility of once the building is built and Public Works is relocated, what it would look like to either sell those lots off and use that money to go back into an infrastructure fund or pay towards the bond. That's, you know, down the road. We would then build the new Public Works. We would go out to RFP for demo and mitigation of the Public Works property, the 6th Avenue property. That in itself, we know that because of what it's used for right now, we're going to have more than just a couple drill sites. You'd have to incorporate that. Then we would, council, when I say we, I mean everybody, I don't mean just me. So, council would then decide whether or not how you wanted to subdivide that 6th Avenue and the Lane property. Right now, you could say we just want to bring back the original town site lots, which would be 32 3,000 square foot lots. Or you decide to subdivide it and have it replatted into larger lots, but that would be in that process. While we were doing the mitigation, then the council would need to decide, as well as planning and zoning, how that looks for you guys, how you want to do it. Then you would sell the lots, again, use the funds from the sale to pay the bond, and anything left over put into the infrastructure.
Let's let McClure
Okay.
and then Cease.
Does this, 20 of 91, does that yellow area on 6th Avenue, that would hold 32?
No,
Or that
it's a
including the
mix,
building?
it's between the 412
Right, and the Belane.
and the Belane.
Okay.
So that, I combined them in
Yeah,
together because, and you'll see, you see on here, there's your yellow spot that Ms. McClure was just talking about.
Next page shows the-
There's already a platted cul-de-sac, platted alley. But just so everyone's very aware, the utilities don't run all the way through there. It stops at a point, so that would be another, we'd have to extend and use the utilities for that. The next portion is that other, so that's the total of the 32 lots, showing you the Lane property as it sits in the borough currently right now.
Okay, well, let's sit on that for a second, because I know that that's a long process, but I definitely would like to have us start that process and move towards that expeditiously. I don't know if that's, Councilmember C, sorry, I never went back to you.
That's all right.
my
I
fault.
just want to know if the one on 6th Avenue, that is including the dog lot now?
Yes,
Okay,
the
that's-
dog lot is right here, so just so everyone knows, where the dog
Right there, okay.
is right now, it's still incorporated in this one lot
Okay,
and
that's what I
plat.
want. That's all I wanted to know. Okay.
So I know we're kind of going through each one of these and it builds, I'm assuming, but just with this one, I think this council would like to see that Public Works relocated, and it looks like the first step is to look at options at a future work session of where that Public Works building could go.
Okay.
Councilmember Casarende?
I guess I've just never looked at it to this degree, but on the lot that is 405 Belane, the 1.45.
This right here,
Yeah, it does not appear, and I could be wrong, that there are any buildings on there except for maybe a shed where we keep gravel.
no, the gravel shed is right here, this is all basically storage, equipment storage.
So is there any reason why we can't start clearing 405 and start subdividing that tomorrow?
We're gonna put it,
We have to decide where
We're
to
gonna
move
put all
forward.
this.
But I'm just saying, when I say tomorrow, I mean like, let's stop dilly-dallying around where Public Works is gonna go. Let's just decide tomorrow, and let's move all the storage over there. And then let's start talking about what we can start cleaning up and doing whatever we're gonna do with those lands, and we'll already be ahead So when we go to get a bond or whatever we do to build the shop, we can be like, we're already selling this stuff, this is where the money's coming.
That's a good discussion to have. The only thing would be inefficiencies of where it could go. I don't know if there's another location to put all those items in the meantime.
Our out-of-town lot that has all those wires.
So then so I'm fine with that. I'm just gonna say, cause I actually think that's a great idea, but we have to put stuff, so then Public Works is gonna be at their shop, running back, running this, running that, we have to realize what that means, which I'm fine with that. I'm just saying we have to go into it with our eyes open. Councilman
And the only
Woodson.
other thing we have to think about is whether or not, you said testing, and if they're gonna be testing, then we wouldn't want them coming in and then leaving and then having to come back and test again. We want them to do it all at once. So, in order to have it all tested.
I have no problem working with administration to set how that work session would go, and we can find those things out. You know,
Could we have a work session on that before the end of the summer? Can I say it that way, Councilmember Casagrande? Like
instead of tomorrow.
I feel like my time's limited in life, and I think that we have a group of folks that really want to make it happen. So, I mean, I'd like to move forward with it also. So, like, by mid-August,
Can we just pick a date now?
well, maybe not in a work session, but maybe you guys just tell us the date.
Okay, we'll come up with the date. One thing I wanted to, I'm sorry. One thing I wanted to also let you know that I think it's next week that we are going to Soldotna to tour their public works facility as well as Kenai to get some ideas and, go from there, but.
So on to the next portion of property. 1911 Dora Way is currently a playground. It is zoned single-family residential, and it has been suggested that since you have the Jesse Lee Memorial Park happening, instead of renovating this top lot, use the equipment that you want to renovate there, put it onto the Jesse Lee Memorial Park and sell this single-family lot.
To open up a single-family home. Comments, go ahead.
Just as long as we don't lose a tot lot or a playground, because that's a very popular one on it.
Yeah, it would be right down the street.
For the neighborhood, go ahead.
There's Park Avenue, I can't see the rest of the map, but that doesn't need to be a throughway or anything. Okay, that's already there.
Nope. The next lot is the 238 Fifth Avenue, which is the annex building. It was brought up at the last meeting to discuss the possibility of that. So it's a little over 0.20 acres. It's zoned commercial business district. It does have you guys have the ability to sell it. You would need to relocate the electric department, community development, and the food bank that's in there currently, as well as possibly the abatement of the building itself. There are contaminants in it, so that gives you that breakdown. I believe they've ordered an appraisal for this property so that we can bring that back and show you what that looks like. The next spot was right across from the Hemlock possible subdivision. This is 2.16 acres. It's zoned right now institutional, but it butts right up to an auto commercial property that's this property here. So,
Go ahead, Councilmember Cascarano.
Can we,
On a mountain, but Haynes really scared me. The tragedy in Haynes this last year was very scary with the mudslides. So any development we do on the side of a mountain, we need to make sure that we're taking some of those. Once the trees go, then look at our Lowell Point Road. So that's why I would be hesitant for the city to develop this and take on the risk for that.
Right, but if it's the council's wishes to look at selling it and a developer were to come forward in that planned unit development plan, they would have to address, and we would require that they address those type of issues. So, everybody's gonna shoot me for this, but I'm just pointing it out. 2021 Unimax Circle is 63.83 acres. Again, I was asked to bring forward the properties that we have with the idea that a planned unit development could come in and say, hey, we wanna build high-end homes up here and this is our plan. It's not something that, you know, the city could do. I mean, we could, but I don't see us developing it that way, but I do see the ability for a developer to come in and say, hey, look, I'm gonna build a road, I'm gonna put the utilities in, and I'm gonna put this, you know, condos up there, I don't know.
How,
Go ahead.
how much of this is buildable? I mean,
What's the topography like?
yeah,
This portion is all, I mean, this is all buildable right here, you just
The
have to
lower-
build into the mountain.
but it is mountainside
It's
building.
mountainside.
So I just have to say, the one thing that I am concerned about, you see it more even out the road. When you cut a tree on the mountainside and the strong winds come, they all start to fall, and I would suspect what's gonna happen further down the road are the mudslides in the mountainside. So I too would just be really cautious about it.
And that, again, that's why you
Yeah.
know, I strongly suggest, I'm a big advocate of planned unit development.
Yeah.
That gives us everything that we could possibly question, and then we can add it if we needed to. So, the next portion is.
Which I will say, I wanna see all these options, so
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
don't think that the questions in the comments
Oh,
are
no.
that we wanna see all the options, so everything's helpful.
How dare you?
Yeah, sorry. I do like that.
So here is the Fort Raymond property, and so as you can see here, the only thing that I did was this 2.67 acres. Because at one point, you know, we are in the process right now, and I can tell everyone that Wednesday, we're having this property appraised that was for the Chugachmute land sale. And then this area here, at one point, the council had suggested to move Public Works there. So I left that out of the idea to sell because I don't know the direction that the council wants us to go. So, right now, this 2.67 acres, it's all zoned, this whole entire area is zoned auto commercial. In an auto commercial district, you can have an apartment building, you can add, you know, you can have a hotel, you can have a strip mall. So this gives the ability for a developer again to come in and say, hey, I really wanna buy this 2.67 acres. I left this area that butts up right up to the electric department. You can see this is old imagery, so it doesn't show the warehouse right now. But I left the tree line there just to give a little bit of a break.
Mayor, if I may?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
So there's the transmission line that's going into Fort Raymond, and you have about 2 of my fingers empty. Is that 2 fingers on north and 2 fingers south, that is that 150
Yes,
foot
this is
easement?
it right here, yep. The transmission line goes right along this direction.
So you have the buffer in there already? Okay.
Does that answer any other questions? Okay.
So, to answer Rissy's question earlier, this is the 6.5 acres on Laurel Street. Currently, right now, Public Works uses this as the snow dump. But, this property as well as, this property here is all owned by the city. This has been built up, there has been some, you know, different individuals that are concerned about the flooding, but the flooding has changed since our Lomar
Levee.
was taken, I mean, the levee was built. And so, the Kenai Peninsula is working with us right now to get new Lomar, so we have adequate data. But, it is a possibility, like I said earlier, the Public Works Department has requested at least 3 to 4 acres. They have a little over 2.5 acres right now, so. Again, yes, it's a snow dump. The city also owns this entire area along here, along Dick Graff. It's zone resource management. There is a drainage ditch there. But to give you every parcel that I could, showing you the areas. So as we move down Dick Graff, we have 2616 Oak, which is 0.94 acres. It's R3, rural residential, not R3, rural residential zone. There are no utilities to this lot. And the lot right next to it is 2617 Maple. It's 0.84 acres. Again, there are no utilities to this area.
Do these flood?
Huh?
Do these flood?
This one does. This one hasn't in the since, like in 2012, it didn't flood. The next property is 306 4th Avenue. This is your city hall where you are sitting right now. This is the parking lot. Again, this is all central business district, so I wanted to make sure to include areas, we have a pretty big footprint of where our building is and then all the parking. But as the city progresses or moves forward, it may be something that the city says, hey, we're gonna take this entire block, build a new city hall, or relocate the city hall, and then it gives you the abilities of seeing how that would look if you wanted to sell it. Then right next to it are these 2 lots. This is where the little hill is, right next to the parking. You have your fire department over here. This is where the fire department parks, and that expansion, this is the volunteer fire department lot. You could extend, your fire department is looking at trying to build a new fire department. Maybe you expand outward, just giving you how that would look. Again, the parking lot right to the north of us. This area here, this is the little garage, and then here's that parking area. And then on Nash Road, we have 30.2 acres. Zone resource management. It's previously where they had they had to have contaminated soil, and they had
The
to have
soil farming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like 6 years, so it's an area that's flat. It's got an open area, and with the council and the planning and zoning commission looking at a possible SMIC overlay, this might be one of those areas where planned unit development could come in to play.
So with our developer incentive and reimbursement program, there is a stipulation where the provisions of this section specifically do not apply to tracts within the Seward Marine Industrial Complex. This tract would be considered outside of the Seward Marine Industrial Complex. Okay.
Yes, yes.
So this would not qualify for the reimbursement?
No, it would.
This
That's
would.
what I was just clarifying.
If you were inside the SMIC area, then it would not, but this does qualify for it.
I just want- I
this is
just-
still Seward though.
I just wanted to verify that it's
Right.
considered outside, yeah.
And then, this is a tiny, tiny arm, but it is something that I've been asked about over my last couple years. This is 15 acres. Right, there's a cliffside, but there's amazing how many people call me to ask me if it's ever gonna be for sale.
What is it used for right now?
We have our title right here, but we don't have anything on it.
And it's interesting, some of these properties are lower hanging fruit when it comes to extending utilities as opposed to others.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then, again, talking about mountainside development, you know, this is considered 809 First Avenue. Yes, this is the base of Marathon, and on the other side. So just to give you guys, that's 248 acres. It's, you know, it's not saying that the whole thing has to be done, but at one point, you know, you could subdivide it off and put housing up here behind First Lake. So it's, you know, one of those,
Is it flat?
No.
you'd have to build on the hill right here,
Hill or mountainside?
mountainside.
Yeah. Higgins Hill.
And then,
Councilmember Cease?
Okay, where's the Jeep Trail? Which, you don't have addresses there. Which one?
I think
The
the
Jeep
Jeep Trail's
Trails.
that,
Right about in the middle.
Right here where that
tree
thing,
line
this thing goes?
pops out at the tree line.
right here. Right?
No, it's gotta be down this
Hill
way.
a little
There you
bit.
go.
Oh,
See the
Oh,
shade?
yeah.
Go
Right.
back.
It's Monroe.
It's off Monroe, so
Yeah.
Jefferson, Madison, Monroe.
So
there
this
it
one
is.
that's in Sturgeon
Right,
down
you
here
just
is
pass
really
it.
the old hospital
Oh, I
then.
can
Yeah.
see it. It's
Okay.
right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can see it.
so the next area is 905 Sea Lion Avenue. This, again, is over by the Fort Raymond property. The entire thing's a little over 2 acres, but like Ms. Casagrande had stated earlier, this big portion here is the transmission line, so you have easements right here. So I just left that out, left the ability for 1.32 acres to be able to be developed on. Again, this is institutional, but butts up next to, you know, the senior housing as well as the auto commercial that's right across from it. And then, included in it, just so for your reference, the Planning and Zoning Commission is currently working on the Muni Land Plan. This is their draft so far, they're reviewing it again tomorrow, and then we will put the whole plan together for approval of their July meeting, and then possibly bring forward to you, depending on any snafus that need to be taken care of by the end of July.
Councilmember Casagrande?
So, is there a reason, so you just went through and showed us pictures of certain parcels, but it's not all the parcels. Is there a reason why we were shown, did I miss something?
Well, and I just, the clerk just pointed out that I missed the 1,800 acres on the other side of SMIC.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering why that
I'm
was.
sorry, I didn't include it.
Oh, okay.
But I have the map, I just
Okay.
didn't include it.
Okay, and then you also didn't include the long skinny strip along Dick Graff, right? Or did you?
No, I didn't, because it's resource management, there's a lot of setbacks there that are required from the levee property. And so I didn't include that, but I mean, it's doable. And I'm sorry, I'll make sure, cause in the Excel spreadsheet, I did include that 1,800 acres.
Oh,
I
on
will
the
make
list.
sure that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll make sure that you guys, receive, as well as Brenda receives a copy of what that map looks like.
And then can you also include the lot on the Seward Highway next to City Express?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, outside of town.
Yeah. Or any other lands that we have outside of town, I feel like that's the only one.
It is.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I think that was a good education for us, honestly, to kind of start to get a visual. To me, it seems like that maybe not the easiest, but if we're wanting to do a large development, you know, moving that city shop is kind of outlined already. I think we're probably hesitant about that 4-acre campground until we look at other options, but I mean, it is in, you know, forest acres, but I mean, I think that sounds like maybe looking at other locations. And then these single lots, it would be good to get some infill on these single lots. So are there any other comments? Go ahead.
I like the idea of the subdivision in Forest Acres campground, but I would like the idea of relocating the campground into another piece of city land, just for the record.
Okay. Councilmember President.
I don't mean to put administration and everyone in an uncomfortable spot, but I saw Doug slip in the
I
side
was just
door.
gonna ask if we could.
So, I would like his feedback on the idea of moving his storage before his shop, if
For the
possible.
405 Belane.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was here for that. Why don't we let the administration talk and figure that out? Because I don't think he was here when we first talked about that. I don't know if we want to have that discussion with him just getting cold called with things.
Okay. I think he heard, I feel like he slipped in when we were talking about it, but.
I mean, it's up to administration if there's what we want to do.
If it's all right, I'd like to wait and we'll bring it back to you.
Okay.
Because I'd like to hear.
How, did you?
Linda.
I was just glad Jackie brought up City Hall, because there is a need to replace City Hall. So when you're looking at all this land stuff, don't accidentally sell the best site for City Hall. Thank you.
Well, and I guess my comment to that is you know, and I could always be convinced otherwise, but I like City Hall at this location. I feel like it's an anchor tenant to our downtown businesses. I mean, we have a number of employees that work here, so personally, I would have to be very much convinced to move it off-site. Well, and if we're staying in this general location and we move somewhere, build a parking lot, I mean, I'm okay to stay in this area, but I don't wanna see City Hall move from our traditional downtown business area.
And if I can just point out, the reason I incorporated a lot of these lots around it is, you know, we have this idea of this is our city hall right here, but it doesn't stop us from extending and letting your city hall be bigger, right? So
we
you
could
can leave
leapfrog it.
Yeah.
I'm fine to leapfrog it. I mean, we have Eagle to Safeway. I mean, they built the new and then became the
Yep.
parking, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
And it's just a work session and that's just my personal opinion.
So, being a landowner downtown, I feel like having City Hall down here always gives me guarantee that they're not gonna be like, just let the tunnel go. So, I want City Hall down here.
Me too.
Personally. And then, the other thing, just thinking in hindsight, like, the Jesse Lee land wasn't on here. There was a couple other, the Tot Lot wasn't in here. There's a couple other like parks and stuff that I'd
Well,
like to.
I didn't incorporate this tot lot,
Uh-huh.
basically because there's never been a request for the tot lot to be taken from there. The only reason I included the other tot lot is because of the way it's zoned. It's zoned single family. And the Jesse Lee wasn't included because we're in the process of still dealing with state funds for the Memorial Park. And I didn't wanna muddy that perception at this point.
So when that comes, I'm sure this is the first of many.
Okay.
Let's make sure that I mean, it's good to think about what's out there. Cause if we don't put those out there for the public to see we're looking at it, then it's a surprise later. And it'd be nice, cause I think we're getting close to finishing up the requirements of that grant and that development, so I'm sure.
know tonight.
I know, so I'm sure then we'll have more to go on.
Yeah, I personally don't wanna move the tot lot. I love the tot lot. I think it's a huge part of downtown, but I'm just saying if we're gonna talk about it all, then it should just be before the body for the body to.
Well,
say.
and just so you know, I mean, I included it in with the muni plan, but by direction from administration, it was Jackie, pick areas that are either discussed previously or areas that are open, that don't have anything on them, so that's why. But they're included in your muni plan.
So what do you need from us in regards to this moving forward?
Part of what we need to talk about is the funding, the initial funding of the DRP, and what our thoughts are regarding future funding of DRP and CIP is taking the funds from the sales of the lots. And keeping in mind there will be costs associated with it, so it's not 100% profit or anything like that. And then funding DRP and CIP, continuing to fund both, ideally both programs. It sounds to me like you want us to explore the Public Works, moving that one, getting that one done first, is what it sounds like. We did look at the calendar, August 9th, a work session. It's a regular meeting night, we could do a work session then, we could have it ready then. And then is there I'm thinking exploring Hemlock and getting the information then about moving the campground or that sort of, doing that activity. Would that be like 1 and 2, bring those back? Are there more? And you are right, Madam Mayor, this will be a continuing, our thought is continuing, I want to say forever, evolving discussion, but we want to start somewhere.
Yeah, let's, Councilmember McClure.
Assuming things are all okay with Jesse Lee, the Dora Wade single-family lot, I mean, as long as the equipment gets put somewhere in the neighborhood, because there's lots of kids that use that. That would be a low-hanging fruit, I think.
Okay.
Councilmember Costello.
Just to beat it again, but I would like to incorporate that Jesse Lee land into these discussions. I don't know that I wanna see anything happen, I just want to be privy to what's happening, because we rezoned it to park and then we'll talk about it later.
Could we at some point look at what development had to take place because of the grant requirements, and then maybe what's left?
We'll do that.
That will be this evening. During the CMR, I will be giving you that layout.
Okay, that would be helpful. And then maybe that can go into the mix. Anything we're missing, folks? I just wanna say, well done, administration. That was very helpful. I think a lot of good information. And we have a 10-minute break before a regular meeting. Anything else? Oh, there was something I wanted to. Oh, I struck it. Must have been a lie. Okay, thank you. I'll dismiss the work session.
At 6:40.